Ferris, who will be talking about the South Texas Coalition of Reason, a group that has national presence as well as presence here in South Texas, and they evolved or emerged about a week or so ago as an overnight sensation with their billboards. Christian Ferris is here today to talk about the billboards and the South Texas Coalition of Reason. And after this salute to all the veterans, we'll be right back with our guest, Christian Ferris. I also want to thank everyone who tunes in every Saturday morning to listen to Ilos Historia. All of your emails, your telephone calls are very much welcomed, and all of your suggestions for future programs as well. And for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time today, welcome to Ilos Historia, Majic 104.9. Ilos Historia is a program presented courtesy of Ested and Baldomero Gallegos in order to give a voice to the voiceless here in Corpus Christi and in South Texas. Living in South Texas, we know the limitations of having a voice that can be heard on the airways, and that's what Ilos Historia strives to do. Not only to present historical data based on fact about the origins of many of the Mexican-American people, as well as Jewish people and other Western Europeans who came to South Texas many hundreds of years ago to settle and develop the area that we so proudly today call South Texas. And today, our guest very much reflects the very intent of Ested and Baldomero Gallegos. So after this salute to the veterans who we always want to thank for their service in defending this country, we will be right back with Christian Ferris with the South Texas Coalition of Reason.
So thanks again for having me today. The United Coalition of Reason is a nationwide group that was started in 2009, designed to bring reason and a positive community for atheists and agnostics in this country to every corner of this country. In 2010, 3 local organizations got together and wanted to start our own local Coalition of Reason. And that was my organization. I'm the president of Corpus Christi Atheists, the Humanist Society of South Texas, and Individuals for Free Thought on the campus of Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi. At the time, we thought it would be great if we could be an umbrella organization for the entirety of South Texas. And over the last few years, we've endeavored to find other organizations. And so today, the South Texas Coalition of Reason spans from Corpus Christi down to Brownsville with groups in Kingsville and Laredo. And our goal as an organization was twofold. The first goal we had was to let other atheists know that we exist, that there's a welcoming community for them here. There's an opportunity for them to give back to our community, because philanthropy is a major part of what our mission is, making Corpus Christi and South Texas a better place to live. But the second component of our goal was to make sure that religious people are aware that we're here. A lot of atheists in this area suffer discrimination, are harassed, have their property vandalized, have problems at work as a result of just not believing. And so we want to make sure that religious people are also aware that we're here, that we're good people, and that we're a positive community in Corpus Christi and throughout South Texas.
Does your organization have regular meetings? And if before we get started, that way people can, if we need to present the information again, we will. But does your organizations have regular meetings? Where do you meet? And if someone is interested in joining or finding out more information, how may they go about doing that?
Well, we have, as our billboards are showing, we have a website. It's South Texas COR for Coalition of Reason. That's southtexascor.com. We have 7 organizations in the Coalition of Reason, and they all have separate meetings and separate goals in addition to our common goals. So for example, Corpus Christi Atheists, which is my organization, meets once a week at least. We have a standing meeting every Sunday. The Humanist Society of South Texas meets every other Monday. So there are a lot of different meetings, a lot of different times. The best way to find out what those are is to go to our website, southtexascor.com, and there's an events tab, and there will be a calendar there for you, or find the group in your area, and through our website, you can click through to their website and find out more there.
Christian, one of the things that I find from talking to many of the listeners is that sometimes grandparents or babysitters on Sunday or on Saturday mornings, while some of the older children are taken to sporting events by their parents. And would you do us a favor and define agnostic and atheist for those grandchildren that were just sent to the dictionary or the computer, and tell us what is an agnostic and what is an atheist, if you would, please?
Sure, and actually this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because there's a lot of confusion about it. So let me start with atheists. The word atheist only means that that person lacks a belief in God. It doesn't even mean that they believe that there is no God actively, although many do. So it's not a separate religion. There's no dogma attached. There are no beliefs attached. You can be from any political spectrum, from any philosophical spectrum. The word atheist just means that you lack a belief in a higher being. Now, the word agnostic, I think, is frequently misused, even by agnostics. I would say that 99% of agnostics are actually atheists. It is possible to be an agnostic and be a theist and believe in God, but it's rare. Atheist versus theist talks about what you believe. The word agnostic talks about what you think it's possible to know. It talks about knowledge. So an agnostic is simply someone who thinks that there is no way to have the knowledge of whether there is a God or not. And I think that applies to many atheists. So, if you tell me that your God makes things float, and you can't demonstrate that things float in the air, I would be a Gnostic atheist on that claim. I would say I don't believe that. My father is a deist, which means he believes there is a God, that God created the universe, but that he doesn't do much more than that. So I would consider myself an agnostic atheist. As far as my father's God is concerned, there's no way to test or provide evidence of a God who doesn't actually do anything. So I think atheist and agnostic are two different things.
Talk about that overnight sensation called the billboard.
Sure, though, we got feedback from that almost instantly. The very first message I got was an email from a local newspaper editor, which was a page long and in all caps, and not at all pleased that we were doing this. She was of the opinion that we were trampling her rights to believe as she wishes, and just upset that we existed, which is one of the reasons, people like that is one of the reasons that we did this campaign, is to reach out to them and say, no, we have no desire to try to tell you what to believe. You have every right to believe in your God, in your religion, just the way we have a right not to. And we want to build a community where that's okay. I think the thing I was surprised about was that after the initial shock, while I continued to get notes like that and voicemails with language that I can't repeat on the air, those messages were overwhelmed by the positive messages that I got, especially from the religious community here in Corpus Christi in South Texas. I would say it was about 3-to-1 messages that I got from people who were very positive and said, I'm a lifelong Catholic. I don't agree with you that there is no God, but but messages that said that they supported the courage it took to stand up in an area like this and say, I don't believe there's a God. And I support your right to say that. In terms of the impact for us, I mentioned we had two goals. The first goal being to make sure other atheists were aware that we were here. Just in the last week since the billboards went up, our membership has gone up between 30 and 40%. And like I said, our second goal was to try and build common community with the religious in South Texas, and a 3-to-1 ratio of positive, uplifting messages to the negative hate that we're used to. It seems to me to suggest that we've been successful on both ends.
I would agree with you. I have lived here 30 years, and I have seen the progressive element emerge maybe just very recently, 2 or 3 years ago, and it's still very hesitant. People are still very hesitant for some of the old reasons of I might lose my job, or I got a family to feed, and for those different types of reasons. So I think that the emergence of an organization that not only represents a viewpoint that may be different from others, but also is willing to interact with other organizations that have different messages, but that all reflect our desire to make this a better community to live in, a safe community for children, for women, for gay people, for the LGBT community, for people who believe in God, for people who do not believe that there is a God. I think that that's what we are all striving for. And what you just said about the 3-to-1 ratio and the 30 to 40%, for me that brings hope, because that shows a population that is open-minded and willing to listen to a difference in opinion without criticizing or without throwing bats at them or sicking dogs on them. And so I myself welcome your organization to Corpus Christi, and again want to offer airtime anytime you need it. If you feel that your organization needs to respond to an accusation that you feel is just very unfair and misrepresents your organization, or if you have an organization event, I want you to also feel very welcome to come here. But I want to go back now to this, a couple of issues. You mentioned Texas A&M University in Corpus Christi. While it is a university, it's a very conservative university. Tell us about your efforts to meet there. I noticed on your website you had your first meeting there. Was it difficult to get your organization approved to have a meeting on campus? And why would you choose the university?
So I don't know that I can answer that question entirely. So we have an organization that's part of our coalition on the A&M campus, and that was created by Elizabeth Henkel in 2010. It's a chapter of the Secular Student Alliance, and so she would probably have to talk to you about what her experience is trying to bring an organization like that to the A&M campus. Elizabeth Henkel. She's the president of Individuals for Free Thought. So for me, it was very easy because I just called Elizabeth and said, hey, we need some meeting space for the first Coalition of Reason meeting. And she said, no problem, I'll make it happen. I can tell you that in the weeks leading up to the launch of our organization, a student from Texas A&M University Kingsville approached me, Jason Chapa, and said he wanted to create a group down there. I was shocked and surprised by how easy that was for him. Well, he probably would tell you it was a lot harder than I know it sucked up a lot of his time. But it went literally in the 2 weeks before the billboards went up, it went from not being an organization to being an organization of 30 to 40 students, and being officially recognized by the university with no problem whatsoever. So we do, as atheists, run into a lot of roadblocks and a lot of negativity. Everything seemed to really fall into place around this. I will tell you that when we first started discussing doing this, I was fearful about being the face of it, because I feared not just for my job, for friends who may not know that I'm an atheist, but really for my children and how that would impact them in the community. And really I decided that social justice and moving people forward into a progressive era where everyone is treated equally, that being a part of doing something like that, it was far more important than any personal impact would fall on me. And really, like I said, I've been surprised that there hasn't been more negative impact for me. I look at human history, and it really is a long, way too slow train from discrimination and hatred and murder to freedom and acceptance for all people, regardless of race, religion, sexual orientation. So while I feel like we are, as a species, very far from where I would like to see us be, I'm heartened that if you look at our history, we are moving always in the right direction. And so I wanted to be a part of that, regardless of the consequences.
That's very brave of you. I think that that's a common thread among historical figures we read about, and that is stepping out of that comfort zone, stepping out of your box where you feel really comfortable, and knowing that your family understands why you're doing it. And I think that makes it a lot easier for your children to support you and your family to support you. So I commend you on that. A few years ago, the Bay Area Church, that's a huge entity here that just, people love it. I get invited there every Sunday by friends. Every Sunday, and they say, you just got to go once, just to go and to have the feeling there. They created quite a sensation a few years ago, giving away cars at Christmas time. The only reason I didn't go is because I couldn't go. Okay, and so that's a draw. You use whatever you can to evangelize. To reach the people that need to perhaps either hear the word of God or hear your message. And so their impact when they started doing that from the rest of the religious community was very critical, especially the Catholic priest. And another comparison that I can draw before I make my point is the entity that was started by Albert Huerta, a local attorney. I don't know if you were familiar with him or not, but after his son, a very successful litigator, his son was hurt in a skiing accident, and he believed that a miracle saved his son. And his son today is alive and walking and talking. And he started a ministry that became very well known, and people travel from throughout South Texas to go there. After his death, his children continued it. But after his death, and when he stopped contributing to some of the denominations here in town, they then became critical again because of the people going to his facility. When I talk to Catholics and others, because I belong to a network that involves pastors from different communities, the main concern was not necessarily that Bay Area existed or that Albert Huerta existed, but the loss of membership. The loss of membership from people that maybe want to go to that other church or go hear a different message. And I found that quite interesting. Do you think that is also what your organization might pose to the religious community, as another viewpoint for those that, turn to a priest before midnight mass while they're in procession, and they turn to the priest and say, I've had a baby. It's really difficult for me to believe that there was a virgin conception and a virgin birth. And it's those types of questions that I think a lot of people have that expect a reasonable answer. Can you address the loss of membership and whether or not you think that might be one of the reasons that the religious community initially will be critical of you? But I also see this, that after the initial hoopla or whatever, it dies down.
Sure. Well, first, let me just make it clear that, my organization is not an evangelical organization. We're not trying to convert people to atheism. Our message is really just one of community to fellow people who are already there or who find themselves there in the future. Certainly, I was raised Catholic, and so we welcome people who are, going through the same process that a lot of us did in deconverting from a religion. I'd also say that, during a recent meeting, I was telling people that I really went into the wrong line of work because I've put a lot of time and money into this, and I feel if I had just started a cult, I could be, getting money. So we're not really concerned with whether, what the size of our organization is. We're just more concerned about the quality of it. So we're not going to be giving away cars trying to convince people to be atheists. I think that, if you look at the recent history of this country, there is the growth of atheism is it's a fact. So the American Religious Identification Survey found that 86% of Americans in 1990 affiliated as Christians. In 2008, that number was 76%. In the same period, we saw nuns, the atheists, agnostics, and unaffiliated grow from 8.2% to 15%. So almost all of the loss that Christian churches experienced, almost all of that came to atheism or agnosticism. So I guess kind of a tangential point that I've noted here, and I think that we can be a part of, I would hope, is that I have noticed in this town that there, besides there being a lot of racial tension, there's also a lot of tension between religious groups in this town. I've heard people say some really terrible things about Catholics or about Bay Area Fellowship. And we're no more for attacking the Catholic Church or attacking Bay Area Fellowship than we are for tolerating people who attack atheism. So I think that in a perfect world, what I'd love to see happen as a result of this is that people of all faiths and no faith can get together and in community with one another make Corpus Christi and South Texas a better place to live. One of the things, I mentioned we do a lot of philanthropic work. One of the things that we're planning on doing is holding a benefit for National Autism Awareness Month next month. One of our Wouldn't It Be Nice goals was, hey, what if we could get a church or several churches to do that with us? So if anyone in the audience is a member of a church and even just wants to have a group come out and represent their church, it's going to be a benefit for the Autism Resource Center here in Corpus Christi. We'd love to have you go to our website, which is southtexascor.com, and get in touch with us.
Okay, Christian, I'm going to go into a break for just a second, see if I can get hopefully it'll play. If not, we'll go on the computer. But I want you to talk after the break on the tolerance of other faiths, something you just very briefly mentioned. And the reason that I want you to talk about it is because, like you, I stepped out of the box in 1990 to help a 3-year-old child. And after seeing his life through his eyes, I saw how different it was from the very same picture that I was looking at. And so that started me on a really different quest in terms of community activism. One of the organizations that I think has made a big impact in the southwest region of the United States is the Industrial Areas Foundation. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but simply what they do is they work through church networks in a community in order to organize and empower the membership in the communities. And their agenda follows the people's agenda, not the political agenda. In San Antonio, it's known as COPS, and now they have 2 organizations in San Antonio. Every major city in the Southwest has an organization like that. Bishop Rene Garcita, who some people will call, there are different opinions on him, good and bad. I had the privilege of working with him. And sometimes when you have the privilege of working very closely with people in very powerful positions, you begin to know them in a very different light. And his charitable acts are very unknown here in Corpus Christi. What I think is one of his first charitable acts was to invite the IAF to this community, and he called a conclave of all the religious priests that at that time extended from Corpus Christi to Laredo. The purpose of that meeting was to present the IAF to them to see if the religious priests in Corpus Christi would embrace the idea of empowering their communities, so that then their communities could become the leaders not only within the church, but within the communities. It thumbs down, okay, thumbs down. Because I was part of the committee, the only female, by the way, I was allowed there. And although I'm not going to reflect on the actual proceedings, I can say very comfortably that there was tremendous disagreement. But it was a vote, and, they abided by the final vote. So at that time, it didn't occur. However, I didn't lose contact with Mr. Cortez, and I said, I need for you to train me so that I know what to do in the community so we can try it again. So he did. And then the next bishop, Carmody, invited him in. And it took off. Different religious denominations came together. We were putting together an action plan. We had to tell politicians that this was not an organization to help them get reelected, but an organization to empower the people, so that the people hold the conferences and they hold the politicians accountable for what did you do with school finance, what did you do with this and that. So they hold them accountable. This organization has a history of turning elections around in Corpus Christi. In San Antonio, what they had to do to get recognized and to get the community to recognize the power of the people is they went to Frost Bank. Everybody took pennies, bags of pennies, went to the teller and said they wanted nickels for those pennies. They tied up the bank for 2 days. Bank business was tied up for 2 days. Tom Frost, head of Frost Bank, said, okay, you guys, let's be friends. And, that took off in San Antonio. Hasn't happened here. What happened with this group that was just moving right along was the Passion of the Lord, or where that, I didn't go see it, the Passion
of the Christ?
There you go. And there was a dispute between the Jewish community and the Catholic community, and they said, this meeting is over, and all of this is over. One of the priests told me, he goes, Lisa, this community is just not ready for that type of organization. My response to him was, so you're telling me that the people are not ready for better wages or higher wages? They're not ready for better housing or streets that they drive on. Is that what you're telling me? I says, I think what you're telling me is that the religious community is not ready to empower the people. So I want you to think about that. I want the community to think about that. And then let's talk about tolerance. What does tolerance mean? Welcome back. If you're listening or just tuning in, you're listening to Hilos de Historia, airing on Majic 104.9. And today, our guest in Studio 3 is Christian Ferris, who is here to talk about the South Texas Coalition of Reason. Welcome back, Christian.
Thank you very much. So again, for those who may not have heard it earlier, our website is www.southtexascor.com. We are a local group of non-theists. We are atheists, agnostics, others. In fact, we've had religious people come to our meetings before, and just either because they're curious or because they enjoy the kinds of conversations that we have, and even the religious are welcome at our meetings as well, as long as they're allied with us and not there to cause trouble. We put up the billboards that say, do not believe in God, you are not alone. And as I said earlier, the two goals for that was to reach out to atheists and make sure that they know they're not alone in South Texas, and also to spread awareness that we are here in a good, positive community in Corpus Christi and all the way down to Brownsville. Want me to talk about some of these things? Okay, sure. I think I'll tackle them. Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and open up the radio lines. It's 361-289-7788 and 361-289-8877 if any of you want to call in. Those are the numbers if you have any questions or comments. And if you want to be on the air, let me know and we'll put you on the air. Thank you.
Okay, so the first topic you brought up was tolerance, and that is a very, very important issue to me, and it has been throughout my entire life, well before I became an activist. And I know this is the first time we've met, but we're at least familiar with each other online, and so it won't be a surprise to you that the one thing that I am completely off the hinge intolerant of is intolerance. And I believe that is the one thing that you should never, ever tolerate. People who hate others because of their race, because of their religion, because of their sexual orientation, I have no patience for it, and I honestly believe that those people should be publicly shamed for those opinions. Outside of that one area, I believe that tolerance is the most important thing that we can promote, and that's one of the main reasons the South Texas Coalition of Reason was formed, not just to promote tolerance of atheists, but also of other people. In particular, I think, the LGBT community is a good example. Just like atheists, most of the intolerance they experience is religious-based. Many religions have holy books that condemn homosexuality. And so we find a fellowship with that community in particular because we experience the same sorts of intolerance from the same sources. And as I mentioned, that's not to be tolerated. So I think the world would be a much better place if everyone stood up and was comfortable with being who they are and was comfortable telling other people that it's not okay to cast hate and even violence on people who are simply different from you for I don't know that it's superficial, but for reasons that should not matter.
Christian, let me just tell you a bit about the audience. My audience won't call in. They'll send us emails. So let me do this for my audience. New listeners may, or, somebody who, and I hope the phone is working. But I know that the listeners do go onto the website, and I know that many of them Facebook. So I want to repeat to them your website, which is www.sotxcor, or no, how would you, okay.
Sure, I'll
I wrote it down. That's how I wrote it. So.
You use shorthand. Our website is South Texas COR, so SOUTHTEXASCOR.com. You can find all three of the local organizations on meetup.com. If you go to ccatheists.com, you'll find Corpus Christi Atheists meetup page, and you can join us there and keep in the know of all the social and philanthropic events that we have going on. I think individualsforfreethought.com will take you to the campus group. So if you're a local student, graduate or undergraduate who's interested in connecting with them, you can find them there. And like I said, if you just look for the Humanist Society of South Texas on Meetup, you'll find them there. And you can get all of that information through southtexascor.com. I think I've spoken the least about the local Humanist chapter. They are a really interesting organization. Their primary meetings, they meet every other week, and it's guided discussion around current events or whatever else is of interest to them. And it's always really intelligent conversation and really great people to talk to. So if you are interested in politics, current events, philosophy, that's definitely the group for you.
Now, you mentioned earlier that your group also does good work in the community, philanthropy, in trying to make this place a better place to live. Talk about the benefit that your organization is supporting in April, and why is it important for you to participate in community events by sponsoring them and encouraging other groups to do that. Why that aspect of your organization? Why is that important as well?
Sure, and I get a lot of quizzical looks from my friends and family who are religious, wondering, if you don't believe in heaven or hell, why are you bothering to do volunteer work? You're not going to be rewarded for it. You're not going to be punished for not doing it. So, wouldn't you just sit on the couch and play Xbox or whatever? And I find that kind of a puzzling view, but it is a common one. For us, there are a few reasons to do it. One would be we live here, and it is in our best interest to have this community be a great place to live because we do live here. And it's in our best interest to make it better tomorrow than it is today. So my organization, Corpus Christi Atheists, have really made sure that we're constantly doing things. We started the organization began in 2006. I joined in 2009, and in 2010, the very first thing that we did was the Meals on Wheels volunteer garden at Del Mar College. I don't know if that's still there or not, but we did a lot of work rehabbing it and getting it up on its feet again. Since then, we've done benefits for the Humane Society. We pretty much you can find us at every beach cleanup, every city beautification project. If you're driving down Ocean Boulevard, and you see some nice plants planted along the medians, you can be sure that some atheists planted many of those.
Let's hope they're not pulled up in the water.
Right, well, exactly. Yeah, please don't pull up our atheist plants. So we're still in the planning stages of our autism awareness benefit, but our current plans are to have a trivia event where you can bring teams of up to 6. There will be a per person charge. 100% of that money will go directly to the local Autism Resource Center. So like I said, South Texas Coalition of Reason is going to sponsor that event, but we'd love to see religious people or religious churches, groups, organizations come out and support a good cause, even if you have to sit next to a godless heathen when you're doing it. I assure you, we are very, very nice people.
Your comments said something that was very curious to me, and that is comments that have been made by people who ask you, why do you do that in the community if you do not believe in God and you won't be rewarded? What that gets me to thinking about is that, are there acts of charity done only because they're going to be rewarded? Yeah, that is. That's something to think about.
Yeah.
Is that part of tolerance, or?
I think that if you talk to those people, I think that's a superficial value, because I really believe that, as an atheist, I probably would believe this, but I believe that altruism is biologically a component of the human experience. You can see it in other animal species. Animals, community animals anyway, help others for no reward or benefit. I think ultimately there is an evolutionary benefit to it, but I think it's just part of being human, is wanting to help. And I feel that if you took any of those people who say that to me, and really dug deep, they're not doing things because they think they're going to go to heaven, or they fear that they're going to hell. They do things because they're a social animal, and they respect and love their fellow human beings. So I don't think we're all that different. I just think that maybe the icing on the cake that is different. Some people like chocolate, some people like strawberry, and that's okay.
Okay, very briefly, we're coming to the end of our show now. Can you very briefly tell us about that national umbrella? Was there a person or persons that started it at the national level? And then again, in your closing thoughts, please give the audience your website and how to get in touch with you, and also, yeah, how they can get more information about your organization. Now, the autism event, that's in April. Do you have a date?
We have a tentative date, so I probably wouldn't even want to get
Okay.
to that. But
Will it be on a Saturday, you think?
yes, it'll be a Saturday.
And how can people, where can they go to find out the date once it's posted? Where will it be posted?
Well, like all of our events, you can find them at southtexascor.com. That's the South Texas Coalition of Reason's website. That will certainly be posted there as soon as possible, as soon as the details are all worked out. And I've forgotten your question. What?
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, the United Coalition of Reason. That was it. Sorry. So the United Coalition of Reason was started in 2009. The individual who is their national director is a man called Fred Edwards, who has been an activist in atheist, agnostic, humanist circles for 30 years. So he has been doing this for a long time. The whole thing is funded by what I understand is a single individual, a wealthy atheist who wishes to remain anonymous. And so their goal is to go out and strengthen atheist communities around the country. So currently there are coalitions of reason. I think there are 59. I think we were the 59th coalition of reason to be started in the past 3 years, and there are coalitions in 33 different states. So it's definitely, if you look at the demographics, atheism is on the rise. More people are choosing a path of reason as opposed to a path of faith. And I think that's why you're seeing an explosive growth in our communities nationwide, is because there are significantly more of us today than there were even 20 years ago. In terms of our local organization, we are going to continue doing a lot of the same things. And as I said, if you go to southtexascor.com, you can find out all of the events that are going on, both social and philanthropic, or even political, because one of the other things we want to do, we as atheists outnumber pretty much every other religious minority combined as a group. But we're not organized. We don't have churches. We don't have dogma to bind us together. We have just this one small thing in common. And so we have not realized the political power that comes with a group of our size. And
say that again, because I know everybody's going, what? Say that again.
We have not realized the
number that you outnumber.
Atheists, agnostics, we outnumber almost every other religious minority combined. So if we're talking about Hinduism, Mormonism, Judaism, in this country, there are more atheists than all of those combined, which is a significant number of people. But then groups like Judaism, they have very strong lobbyists and have a lot more political power than we do. And it's simply because they're organized. And so that's another component of what we're trying to do, is to realize the power that we have to impact politics in a positive way, and to bring tolerance and freedom, not just for us, but for everybody. And like I said, I think that our history is a long and far, far too slow march to that goal, and we want to put our stamp on it and help it along. Maybe a little faster, that'd be great.
I think, power in numbers, that's a powerful statement that you made there. Let's say you were organized across the United States. Your message isn't necessarily that you're trying to preach a lack of belief in God, but what would your message be? Would it be one of making this place a better place to live?
Certainly, that would be our that would be our message. Speaking just for Corpus Christi atheists, we have a mission statement, and our mission statement is to first provide a positive community for atheists in this town. The second is to make this town a better place to live for everybody, because I think as humans, we all share that in common, and as humans, I think we have common goals, and I think we can find those and work together to accomplish them. The last thing, and I think that this is true of the entire Coalition of Reason, is that we also support the separation of church and state. So we don't want religion taught to our children. I'm certain people of religious faiths don't want other faiths taught to their children. And so again, I think this is a common cause that we can all get behind, which is religious tolerance and keeping that separate from the public square.
Okay, I want to thank LBJ, the DJ, is a young man that helps me. He monitors the emails and other things because I tell him, I said, my audience just doesn't call. He says, you got 30 calls that said, go, go, go. 15 of them wanted to hear the next song that I'm playing as well. And so they have several different requests, but all the calls he said were positive. He said there were no calls at all that came in, or what I say by calls, emails and texts that were negative at all.
Excellent.
At all. And he said they came from different listening. He said, I think he said 10 from Benavides, and I forget the exact numbers, but I do know he said Falfurrias. Interestingly enough, Sarita, we have a large listening audience in Sarita, Texas, which we know is Catholic County,
right,
or more or less. So we have a large listening audience there because what we present here, Christian, not only are shows like yours, but we present that other side of Texas history where we highlight the contributions of other groups that came from Western Europe, the French, the Germans, the Polish, the Bohemians, all of those. And that's the history that we talk about, the Jewish history. Sometimes that's omitted in the school textbooks. And it's a history certainly that one can be very proud of. And so we do have a large listening audience. And we do present many stories about the Kennedy Ranch, simply because I have written a story about the Anne Hernandez, who is the alleged daughter of John G. Kennedy Jr., and as a result have gotten to know many people in Sarita, Texas, and find that they're not narrow-minded, they're very open-minded, and that's so nice to see in a very small town. I want to thank you for coming by today and talking about your organization and the different activities that you're involved in, and also your agenda, what you intend to do here in Corpus Christi and why. And I wish you a lot of luck. I want to invite everyone to go to the website to talk to Christian on the internet. You may or may not agree, but then that happens every day in our own families. And disagreement, it opens up the door to dialogue, to understand and to tolerate someone else's opinion, even though it may be 100% what we don't believe in. Tolerance simply represents that you accept the other person for who they are. And we all want other people to accept us the way we are. And I think that is part of tolerance, is extending that same courtesy that we ask for ourselves to someone else. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to change behavior, but if you do it for the right reasons, it's easy to smile and reach out and shake people's hands that you may not agree with, because, again, that opens up the dialogue to see what we can all do together to make this community a better place to live. Christian, thank you very much for coming by today. You have any closing words before you leave? And, again, I want to thank you on behalf of Hilos de Historia and Esther and Baldomero Gallegos for taking time to come in today.
I just want to thank you for having me and thank your audience for listening for the last hour, and encourage everyone to go to southtexascor.com to learn more about us if you are an atheist or an agnostic. And if you're a religious person, please get in touch with us. There's a phone number and an email address there. It's not too hard to find my phone number and my email address if you're persistent enough on that site. So please get in touch with me if you're a religious person and you'd like to join together with us to make Corpus Christi and South Texas a better place to live.